A warm welcome to another episode of SciencePunk Explains the Frame Budget Approach.
All right, so last time we were here, we dug into this big question, right? Is just saying entropy really enough to explain irreversibility? And, well, that question immediately leads to another one, a question that's so fundamental it's almost invisible. When we talk about a system, where exactly is it? Where does the boundary run that separates it from everything else?
And that right there, that's our first big idea for today, the invisible assumption. Because it turns out that in, pretty much every physical description we use, we're making a silent assumption, a choice that's always there, but we almost never actually talk about it. I mean, think about it in a really simple way. Let's say you're doing your household budget. You can't possibly balance the books if you don't first define what the household even is. Is your car part of it? What about that old savings account? You have to draw a line somewhere. And, well, it's the exact same thing in physics, whether we're talking about energy or information or really anything we want to keep track of. Any kind of accounting needs a boundary, period. And what's so wild is that physics does this constantly. We throw around terms like open system or closed system all the time, right? We treat them like they're just facts of nature. But those terms, they're totally loaded. They sneak in this huge assumption that a boundary has already been drawn, separating the system from everything else. And here's the kicker. The choice of where to draw that line, we almost never talk about it. It just happens. Okay, so if we want to be really rigorous about this, we have to stop sweeping this under the rug. We need to stop treating it like some silent assumption and start treating it like what it is, a tool. So let's get formal for a second and define exactly what we mean by an accounting boundary. So here's the definition. An accounting boundary is an operational dividing line, and that word operational is absolutely crucial. This isn't some real physical wall that exists out there in the universe. No, it's a line we draw. We, as the observers, as the accountants, draw this line to say, okay, this is the part of the world we're going to track. We call that the system, or S. And everything on the other side of that line, that just becomes the great undifferentiated everything else, the environment, or E. But please, don't mistake this for some trivial little bookkeeping detail. This choice isn't just about making our diagrams look neat and tidy. As you're about to see, the decision of where to draw this line has absolutely profound consequences. It literally changes the entire story we tell about what's physically happening. Okay, to make this really concrete, let's look at a couple of super simple, everyday examples. We could be talking about a pot on a stove, a battery, a lab experiment, heck, even your own body and its surroundings. This is where the true power of the accounting boundary really clicks into place. All right, let's take a look. On the left side here, imagine we draw our accounting boundary really tightly, just around the pot of water sitting on the stove, okay? From that very narrow point of view, what's the story we tell? Well, the pot is an open system, and we see heat just escaping out into the room. It looks for all the world like an irreversible loss. Now, look at the right side. All we've done is redraw our boundary. Now it includes both the pot and the stove itself. And just like that, the story changes completely. It's not about loss anymore. Now it's about a transfer. We're describing a coupled interaction, right? An energy transfer from the stove's heating element to the water. It's the exact same physical situation, but we get two totally different descriptions. Let's hammer this point home with one more example, a discharging battery. So if our boundary is drawn just around the battery itself, what do we see? We see an open system that's just irreversibly dissipating its energy. It's running down. End of story. But what if we widen that boundary? What if we include the charger that it's plugged into? The whole story flips on its head. Now we see a coupled interaction. Energy is being actively transferred into the battery. Suddenly, the process looks reversible. Our description just shifted from dissipation to interaction. And this is the core insight, the whole point, really. These words we use in physics constantly. Loss, coupling, dissipation, transfer. They aren't absolute truths about the world. They're not just out there. They are frame-relative descriptions. Their meaning depends entirely on where you decided to draw the accounting boundary. So, okay, we've established that drawing this line is a really big deal. And this is where the frame budget approach, the FBA, gets super interesting. Because it doesn't just, nod at this fact and move on. No, it puts this choice front and center. The source material has this fantastic quote that just nails the operational perspective. It says, "An observer who only has access to S treats everything outside S as an environment E." That's it, right there. The system S is simply defined by what you, the observer, can access. Everything else just becomes the environment E. That means the boundary is really a statement about access. It's a statement about observation. And that's a huge difference from so many other physical theories that just kind of let this boundary thing be an unstated implicit assumption. The great strength of the FBA is that it forces your hand. It makes defining the accounting boundary the explicit first step of any description. Before you can even begin to talk about what happens, you have to say, okay, here is my system and here is my boundary. And once you've drawn that line, the FBA brings out its really powerful bookkeeping tool. The idea is, for any change, any single step the system takes, the total budget for that step gets split into 3 different accounts. First, there's the external share. Think of this as accounting for changes in the system's relationship with its environment. Then you have the internal reversible share. This one tracks changes happening inside the boundary that, could be undone. And last, you've got the internal irreversible share. This is the one-way street. This is the account for things like dissipation, for those changes that really contribute to a system's aging. And the most important part, what gets logged into which of these 3 accounts depends completely on where you drew that boundary in the first place. And this leads to a really profound shift in how we think. Because in the FBA, development isn't some smooth process that just unfolds in the background of time. No. Development is the sequence of these discrete, budgeted steps. The very act of accounting, of tracking these budgets within the boundary you've chosen, that is the description of development. Okay, so we've seen that you have to draw a line, and we've seen that where you draw it completely changes the story. That brings us right to our summary and a little peek at what's coming next. So let's recap the 3 big takeaways from today. Number 1, pretty much every physical description out there has a silent, hidden assumption baked into it, an accounting boundary. Number 2, where you choose to draw that boundary is not some minor detail. It's a huge deal. It can completely change the physical story from one of loss to one of coupling. And finally, number 3, the frame budget approach doesn't hide this choice. It drags it out into the open and makes it the explicit operational starting point for its entire budget-based bookkeeping method. And all of this leads to one final, really juicy question. We've spent this whole time talking about drawing a line, a boundary that separates the inside from the outside. So, what can actually get across that line? What is it that allows a system and its environment to interact at all? Well, that's exactly what we're going to tackle in the next explainer. We're going to look at what can pass across that boundary. In other words, we're going to ask what exactly is a channel. Bye for now, until the next episode, and stay curious.